I'm just being
Slam
super
it
aggressive.
down.
Hi, this is Rachel, and today I'm so excited to make two types of ensaymada, a plain cheese ensaymada and one of the Ube swirl variety. This series is called the Sago Show, where I'm exploring the roots and digging deeper into the history behind some of my favorite Filipino dishes and sweets. And hey, today we're doing sweets. I have my bread expert friend Kate here to help me make cheesy ensaymada. To start off, I have 1 cup of heated milk and a 1/4 cup of hot water, and this is at around 96 degrees Fahrenheit. At this temperature, I want to add 8 grams of yeast, and Kate's going to help me mix in the yeast with a fork. The heat is going to help activate the yeast. Ensaymada originated in Spain, specifically Mallorca, an island in Spain. The name comes from the word saïm, the Catalan word for pork fat. In the version I'm making today, I'm going to be using vegetable shortening though. In another bowl, I'm going to add 100 grams sugar, a 1/4 tablespoon salt, and 100 grams of shortening to put the saïm in ensaymada. Then combine these with a spatula. I know what you're thinking. Wow, Rachel, you have a food thermometer now. A scale, how fancy. Well, actually, Kate brought all of these things to my house. Kate is pretty much the only reason that this video is possible today. Also because I've never made bread before, so she's gonna bring in a lot of helpful tips. Next, let's add part of the milk and yeast mixture. Then, add half of the flour mix and just keep combining. Alternate between adding a bit of the milk and a bit of the flour, and then working it in with the spatula. In previous videos, we've talked about Spanish colonization. With this recipe, something we're going to look at a little closer is what ensaymada can tell us about how colonization shaped societal and class hierarchies. First, let's talk about what we know about ensaymada. Even though ensaymada are widely available in markets across the Philippines and Filipino bakeries in the United States, these are really special pastries. My memories of ensaymada are always in receiving a box of them from a family member, each of them individually wrapped and perfect with hot chocolate. When looking at Filipino dishes, there are some that you associate with parties, gatherings, and the holidays. Fiesta Food. Ensaymada is one of these. So now we're going to gradually work in 4 egg yolks into the dough and keep mixing. The egg yolks are going to make the bread really rich, like a brioche. And now once this is all combined, Kate's going to bring out the big guns with a plastic scraper and start kneading. I told you already that this video is totally made possible by Kate. We're trying to knead the dough here until we reach a point where you're going to pass the window pane test. I'll show you what that looks like when we get there. And while Kate's kneading here, doing the work that I technically probably should be doing, let me first say that the fact that ensaymada is of Spanish origin and also associated with celebrations is no coincidence. And if you haven't yet watched part 3 of this series, I highly recommend that you go back to hear an introduction to Doreen Fernandez's work and her concept of indigenization. Here's what she says about Spanish food. Spanish dishes and cooking techniques came with the colonizers and instantly assumed positions of prestige. For one thing, many of their principal ingredients, olive oil, saffron, hams, and sausage, were imported and expensive. For another, the food of officials, friars, and other foreigners seemed superior and desirable, because these people comprised an elite social class. Thus, Fiesta Food is often Spanish. So because of the cost of ingredients being sky high since they would have to be imported, in addition to the fact that people eating this food were highly regarded in society, naturally as they had colonized the place, Spanish food brought to the Philippines gets this elite status. And that's what becomes Fiesta Food. There's this inherent idea with colonization that the imperial country is asserting the concept that what they brought is more elevated than what you have. Back to the dough here, I want to point out that Kate's magic has helped this dough achieve exactly what we want, which is one that is so strong it forms a window pane when you stretch it out. Look at that. Next, we're at the first proof. I want the dough to proof in a nice, warm environment, so I'm going to put a pot of boiling water in the oven, which is a trick I learned from Kate. Before I stick the dough in there for 2 to 3 hours, let me just show you what the dough looks like before we put it in. I've put it in a greased bowl, and I want you to take a nice good look because this dough is meant for very big things, and the next time you see it, it will be about double in size. Ooh, okay, maybe a bit more than double, oops. Next up, let's look at our lineup of fillings. First up, we've got a stick of softened butter, and the star of the show, a store-bought ube jalea or ube jam. I am very fortunate to be able to pick this up at the local Filipino store, but I believe it's also available online. We're going to be making 6 regular ensaymada and 6 with ube. Kate is going to dump our beautiful bouncy dough onto our floured surface and cut this into 12 pieces, and I'm going to roll them into little balls. In order to build our ensaymadas, we're going to take a ball of dough, keeping it pretty well floured as it can be sticky. Roll it out into a rectangle. Then brush on a layer of the butter. Then roll up the rectangle. Make it a little longer by rolling it out. And then to make the famous swirly shape, we're going to carefully roll it into a snail shell like so. This fits in really well into one of the slots in this greased muffin pan. Kate is going to show how to do one of the ube ones. So same groove here, roll it out into a rectangle, brush on the butter. Now add a generous layer of the ube jalea and roll this up. While we spin up the rest of these, we've previously established Doreen's point about Spanish food being Fiesta Food. Let's look at how some of the bakeries in the 19th century advertised ensaymada in the Philippines. This is coming from Jenny Orillos, who co-wrote the book Panaderia. Apparently, one of the bakeries in Intramuros boasted that they had ensaymadas exactly the same as the best in Mallorca. The ensaymada were carefully made by European staff in a clean area using the best flours that they can get at the time. To me, this language is charged. European staff, clean area, this associated with a bread that is of an elite class and enjoyed by affluent Spanish people in a land that wasn't theirs. When we talk about colonization, there's the physical aspect of colonists stepping foot onto new land and imposing on the people. But colonization also has an effect on the mind. The idea that you are uncultured, you need to be tamed, and what they are bringing in is what you should strive for. How does this manifest in our minds today? I'm the first to admit about myself that growing up in a majority white city, I had been inclined to think that the more white I acted, the better. I stayed far away from anything that made me too Filipino, and it took 24 years for me to hear my heritage calling me back. And that's when I started to reach an understanding of how deeply I had lived the effects of imperialism and white supremacy. This is an insidious and dangerous thing that we must continue to fight. I'm a firm believer that we carry with us today the burdens that our ancestors felt many years ago. And you, watching this, you might be at a different stage of processing than I am. But we all have to deconstruct and combat this in perpetuity. I think a lot of it starts with reflection, learning, and unlearning, at least for me. If you're interested in learning more about colonial mentality on Filipinx Americans, I'm linking some resources in the description below. And there's no really good way to make this transition, but oh mama, we're not even finished making these. Once these are all rolled up, we're going to do a final proof for 30 minutes or until they've doubled in size. Then, we can pop these in the oven at 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 25 minutes and then let them cool. Next, I'll prepare a quick buttercream frosting by adding a half cup of powdered sugar to a half cup of butter. We're also going to need some shredded cheddar cheese. I've got my ensaymada assembling station all set up, so I'll take a cooled ensaymada and a layer of buttercream, a sprinkle of sugar, and then carefully press the cheddar cheese onto the top. Look, after having just made these, I can't doubt that these are a super special treat. Here's the inside of the Ube Ensaymada with a swirl of halea, and I don't even know what else there is to say. I can't eat ensaymada and be unhappy. I just can't. Thank you so much to Kate for all of the bread wisdom and trading off with me during the kneading. I know you did most of the work. If you're interested in learning more about colonial mentality, specifically for Filipinx Americans, I can't recommend highly enough Brown Skin, White Minds by E.J.R. David. We're over halfway through this 6-part series, and I'm so thankful for your support so far. Thank you for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you think so far. What recipes would you like to learn more about? And as always, if you liked what you saw today, like this video and subscribe to my channel so that you can stay plugged in with the upcoming episode next week on The Sago Show. Salamat!